Little boy thinks he saved the smallest puppy, but when the vet saw it, he screamed, "Call 911!" A simple act of kindness turns into a terrifying discovery, as the tiny animal hides a secret that could expose a powerful man's dangerous crimes. What seemed like an innocent rescue becomes a race against time, putting a child, a loyal ally, and a compassionate vet in real danger. Every step closer to uncovering the truth draws them deeper into a web of corruption, secret experiments, and threats they never imagined. The puppy holds a hidden key, and one wrong move could cost lives. Can courage, clever thinking, and sheer heart overcome a ruthless adversary? And will this small hero survive the storm he's unleashed? Through sheets of rain, Boone hugged the tiny puppy close to his chest, feeling its rapid heartbeat against his own. His sneakers squelched with every step as he trudged up the muddy path toward home. The storm had left everything drenched, and now the late afternoon sky hung heavy and gray above him. "Don't worry, little guy," he whispered to the shivering bundle. "We'll get you warm and dry soon." The puppy's wet fur had soaked through Boone's t-shirt, but he didn't mind. All he could think about was getting the poor thing to safety. Its coal-black eyes looked up at him with complete trust, making his heart squeeze. As he rounded the corner onto Cedar Street, his house came into view, a modest white structure with peeling paint and a slightly crooked mailbox. Through the kitchen window, he could see his mom moving around, probably getting dinner ready after her long shift at the diner. Boone hesitated at the front door, water dripping from his sandy brown hair. His mom wasn't going to be happy about the mess. Taking a deep breath, he turned the handle and stepped inside. "Mom?" he called out, creating puddles on the worn linoleum floor. Ruth Ann turned from the stove, her tired expression quickly shifting to alarm. "Boone Carter, what in the world?" She rushed over, dish towel in hand. "You're soaked to the bone. And what's that you're holding?" The puppy chose that moment to let out a tiny whimper, causing Ruth Ann's eyes to widen further. "I found him stuck in the culvert by Miller's Creek," Boone explained quickly. "He was crying and scared, Mom. I couldn't just leave him there." Ruth Ann's face softened slightly, though worry lines still creased her forehead. "Oh, honey," she sighed, running a hand through her chestnut hair. "You know we can't afford—" I know," Boone interrupted. "But I was thinking we could take him to Dr. Matthews at the vet clinic. Maybe someone's looking for him. He has a collar." The puppy squirmed in his arms, and Boone adjusted his grip, feeling the strange lump of the crimson pouch hidden beneath the collar. He hadn't had a chance to look at it properly yet. "You're dripping all over my clean floor," Ruth Ann said, but her voice had lost its edge. She grabbed a fresh towel from the laundry basket nearby. "Here, let's dry both of you off first." As she helped wrap the puppy in the towel, her expression grew concerned. "He's so small. Can't be more than a few weeks old. What kind of person would let a puppy this young out in weather like this?" Boone shook his head, carefully rubbing the puppy's fur. "I don't know, but look how skinny he is. I can feel his ribs." The puppy's tail gave a weak wag as they dried him, and he tried to lick Boone's hand. Despite being so tiny, there was something fighter-like in his spirit that made Boone smile. "Well," Ruth Ann said, grabbing another towel for Boone, "you need to change into dry clothes before you catch your death. Then we can figure out what to do about this little fellow." "But Mom—" "No buts. Dry clothes first. The puppy will be fine for 5 minutes." Boone reluctantly handed the bundle to his mother and hurried to his room, leaving wet footprints down the hallway. As he pulled on fresh jeans and a clean shirt, he could hear his mom talking softly to the puppy in the kitchen. When he returned, Ruth Ann had wrapped the puppy in a fresh towel and was examining the collar. "It's pretty worn out," she observed, "but no tags that I can see." Boone reached for the puppy, his fingers finding the hidden pouch again. "There's something else," he said, carefully pulling back the leather to reveal the crimson cloth bundle. Ruth Ann leaned in closer. "What in the world is that?" Before Boone could answer, the puppy sneezed, making them both jump. "We should get him checked out," Boone said. "Dr. Matthews might be able to tell us more about him." His mother glanced at the clock on the wall, then out the window at the gloomy sky. The clinic might be closing soon, and it's still raining. "Please, Mom?" Boone looked up at her with pleading green eyes. What if he's sick? He was out there all alone in the storm. Ruth Ann's expression wavered between concern and resignation. She'd always taught Boone to help those in need, and now his compassion was making it impossible for her to say no. "All right," she finally said, reaching for her car keys. "But we're just getting him checked out, okay? We can't keep him, Boone. You understand that, right?" Boone nodded quickly, though his heart ached at the thought of giving up the tiny creature he'd rescued. "I understand. Thank you, Mom." As they headed out to their old sedan, the puppy snuggled deeper into Boone's arms, seeking warmth. The rain had settled into a light drizzle, and the streets glistened under the streetlights that were starting to flicker on. Boone sat in the passenger seat, carefully cradling his precious cargo. His mind kept returning to the mysterious crimson pouch hidden beneath the collar. What could it be? Why would someone hide something in a puppy's collar? The drive to the vet clinic was quiet, except for the swish of windshield wipers and the occasional whimper from the puppy. Boone could feel his mom stealing glances at him, probably worried about how attached he was already getting to the little dog. But Boone couldn't help it. Something about finding this puppy felt important, like it was meant to happen. He just didn't know why yet. The veterinary clinic's glass door chimed as Boone and his mother entered, bringing with them the smell of rain and wet pavement. The waiting room was nearly empty, just an elderly woman with a cat carrier in the corner. The familiar scent of antiseptic and pet food filled the air. Sandra, the receptionist, looked up from her computer. Her eyes widened at the tiny bundle in Boone's arms. "Oh my goodness, what do we have here?" "Found him in a storm drain," Boone explained, holding the puppy closer. "He needs help." "Dr. Pike is just finishing up with another patient," Sandra said, already reaching for the phone. "But I think she'll want to see this little one right away." The puppy shivered against Boone's chest, its wet nose pressing into his shirt. Ruth Ann filled out some paperwork while they waited, though Boone noticed she left the owner information section blank. Within minutes, Dr. Leonora Pike appeared in the doorway to the exam rooms. Her dark hair was pulled back in its usual neat bun, and her warm brown eyes quickly assessed the situation. "Bring him back here, please," she said, gesturing for Boone and his mother to follow. The exam room was brightly lit, with a steel table in the center. Dr. Pike laid out a clean towel. "Let's have a look at our little patient." Boone carefully placed the puppy on the table, keeping one hand on its back for comfort. Dr. Pike's gentle hands moved efficiently, checking vital signs and examining the tiny creature from nose to tail. "He's severely dehydrated," she muttered, reaching for supplies. "And hypothermic. Sandra," she called out, "bring me some warm fluids and heating pads, stat!" Sandra rushed in with the requested items, while Dr. Pike continued her examination. "How long was he out in the rain?" "I don't know," Boone admitted. "I found him stuck in a culvert maybe an hour ago." Dr. Pike nodded, her fingers probing gently. "He's probably 3 or 4 weeks old, much too young to be away from his mother." She frowned. "But someone's had him. There's a collar." As she mentioned the collar, her fingers found the hidden bulge of the crimson pouch. Her movements slowed, becoming more deliberate. "What's this?" Boone watched as she carefully turned the collar, revealing the stitched-in pouch. The wet leather had started to dry, making the hidden compartment more obvious. Dr. Pike's expression changed subtly as she examined it. "Sandra, could you give us a moment?" Dr. Pike's voice was casual, but there was an underlying tension that made Boone's stomach tighten. Once Sandra left, Dr. Pike used a small pair of scissors to carefully cut the stitches, holding the pouch closed. Her hands were steady, but Boone could see the concentration in her face as she worked. The puppy whimpered softly, and Boone stroked its head to comfort it. The crimson fabric fell open, revealing something small and black nestled inside. Dr. Pike's breath caught as she lifted out a tiny memory stick, no bigger than her thumb. For a moment, the room was completely silent, except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the puppy's soft breathing. Dr. Pike stared at the memory stick, her face growing pale. "Oh no," she whispered. Then louder, with unmistakable urgency, "Sandra, call 911, right now!" The sudden shift in energy made the puppy yelp. Boone instinctively gathered it closer, his heart racing. "What's wrong? Is the puppy okay?" But Dr. Pike was already moving, closing blinds and locking the exam room door. "Ruth Ann," she said, her voice tight with control, "take Boone and the puppy into the storage room at the end of the hall. Sandra will show you. Stay there until I come get you." "But what's happening?" Ruth Ann asked, her hand finding Boone's shoulder. "Please," Dr. Pike said, clutching the memory stick. "Just do as I ask. Quickly." The sound of approaching sirens filtered through the walls. Boone held the puppy tightly as Sandra ushered them into the storage room, his mind spinning. The tiny dog that had seemed like such a simple rescue was clearly something more, something that made trusted adults scared. In the windowless storage room, surrounded by boxes of medical supplies and bags of pet food, Boone listened to the growing commotion outside. The puppy nuzzled against his chest, unaware that its collar had contained something important enough to turn a quiet vet clinic into a center of emergency. "Mom?" Boone whispered. "What's going on?" Ruth Ann shook her head, her face tense in the fluorescent light. "I don't know, honey, but we did the right thing bringing him here. Remember that." The puppy sighed in Boone's arms, finally warm and safe. But Boone couldn't shake the image of Dr. Pike's face when she found the memory stick, the moment everything changed. Whatever was happening, he was now part of something much bigger than a simple rescue, and that thought was both exciting and terrifying. The storage room door opened, and Dr. Pike's concerned face appeared. "It's safe now. Please come with me." Boone followed her back to her private office, still clutching the puppy. The room looked different now, blinds drawn tight, door locked behind them. 2 police officers stood near her desk, their faces serious. "Sit down, please," Dr. Pike said, gesturing to chairs. She moved behind her desk where a laptop sat, its screen dark and facing away from them. "What I'm about to show you, well, it's important you understand how serious this is." Boone stroked the puppy's head, watching as Dr. Pike carefully inserted the memory stick into her laptop. The room felt heavy with tension as she typed, her fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. "There's footage here," she explained, her voice low. "From this morning, and it's disturbing." The police officers moved closer as Dr. Pike turned the screen. Boone could see grainy security camera footage of what looked like a warehouse. The timestamp showed 6:47 a.m., just hours ago. A man in an expensive suit walked into view. Even through the footage's poor quality, Boone recognized him immediately. Everyone in town knew Carver Hathaway. His face was on billboards advertising his chicken processing plants, in the local paper supporting charity events, even on TV commercials. But this wasn't the smiling Hathaway from the advertisements. This Hathaway moved with cold purpose, speaking to two burly men who flanked him. The footage had no sound, but Hathaway's angry gestures made his mood clear. "That's him, all right," one officer muttered. "Carver Hathaway himself." Boone watched as Hathaway pointed toward something off-screen. The two men nodded and disappeared from view. When they returned, they were dragging someone between them, a person with a bag over their head. Ruth Ann gasped. "Oh my God!" "The metadata confirms this is from this morning," Dr. Pike said quietly. "And there's more." She clicked through several files until she found an audio recording. A scratchy voice filled the room. "Subject secure at alternate location, awaiting further instructions." The timestamp was from just 2 hours ago. "They're still alive," the second officer said. "Whoever Hathaway took, they're still out there somewhere." Boone looked down at the puppy in his arms, trying to make sense of it all. The tiny animal that had seemed so helpless in the storm had been carrying evidence of something terrible. But why? How did the puppy end up in that culvert with such important information? "I don't understand," he said finally. "What did Mr. Hathaway do?" Dr. Pike exchanged glances with the officers before answering. "Someone was trying to expose wrongdoing at Hathaway's plants, a whistleblower, and it looks like Hathaway, well, he decided to stop them." "But that's wrong," Boone said, his voice stronger than he expected. "You can't just make people disappear." "No, you can't," one officer agreed, "which is why this evidence is so important. You did a very brave thing bringing this to us, son." Brave? Boone hadn't felt brave. He just wanted to help a cold, wet puppy. But now he was sitting in a locked office, watching powerful men do terrible things on a computer screen, while police officers talked about evidence and whistleblowers. The puppy stirred in his arms, letting out a tiny yawn. Boone thought about how it had ended up in that culvert, probably tossed there by someone thinking the storm would wash away any evidence. Instead, the puppy had survived long enough for Boone to find it. "What happens now?" Ruth Ann asked, her hand tight on Boone's shoulder. "We need to keep you both safe," Dr. Pike said. "And the puppy, too. This evidence is crucial, and Hathaway has a lot of influence in this town." The words made Boone's stomach tighten. He'd seen Hathaway's name on half the buildings downtown. His company employed hundreds of people. And now Boone had helped uncover something that could hurt him, something he'd clearly do anything to keep hidden. Looking down at the puppy, peaceful and trusting in his arms, Boone felt the weight of responsibility settle over him. This wasn't just about saving a tiny dog anymore. Someone's life depended on what they'd found. Someone Hathaway had tried to silence. The footage played again on Dr. Pike's screen. Hathaway's cold efficiency, the struggling figure being dragged away. Boone watched it loop, understanding for the first time just how much danger that little crimson pouch had contained. He held the puppy closer, suddenly aware that his simple act of kindness had thrown him into the middle of something much bigger and more dangerous than he could have imagined. But watching Hathaway's cruel actions again, Boone knew they had to stop him, no matter how powerful or scary he might be. The drive home was tense. Boone sat in the back seat of his mother's aging Honda, the puppy curled in his lap, while Ruth Ann kept glancing in the rearview mirror as if expecting someone to follow them. "We need to pack some things," Ruth Ann said, her knuckles white on the steering wheel, "just until this all blows over." Before Boone could respond, red and blue lights flashed behind them. Ruth Ann pulled over, her hands shaking as she lowered the window. Sheriff Wallace Greeley approached, his badge gleaming in the afternoon sun. "Afternoon, Ruth Ann," he drawled, resting his arm on the car door. His eyes shifted to Boone in the back seat. "Heard there was quite a commotion at Dr. Pike's office." Boone's heart pounded. He knew Sheriff Greeley. Everyone did. The man was always at Hathaway Company events, laughing too loud at Carver Hathaway's jokes, slapping him on the back like they were best friends. "Just a routine vet visit," Ruth Ann said, trying to sound casual. "Boone found a stray puppy." The sheriff's eyes narrowed. "Mind if I take a look at this puppy?" Boone clutched the tiny animal closer. "He's sick," he blurted out. "Dr. Pike said he needs rest." "Did she now?" Sheriff Greeley's friendly smile didn't reach his eyes. "Funny thing is, I got a call about some missing property, valuable property. Thought maybe you folks might have come across it." "We haven't found anything valuable," Ruth Ann said firmly. "Just a wet puppy and a storm drain." "Storm drain, huh?" The sheriff straightened up. "Tell you what, why don't you follow me back to the station? We can sort this all out properly." "We need to get home," Ruth Ann protested. "Boone has homework." "Wasn't really a request, ma'am." Boone's phone buzzed in his pocket. Carefully shifting the puppy, he pulled it out to see a text from Dr. Pike. "State investigators contacted. ETA 4+ hours. Be careful." 4 hours. Boone thought about the voice on the recording. Subject secure at alternate location. Someone was out there, waiting for further instructions from Hathaway. Would they still be alive in 4 hours? "Mom," Boone whispered. "We can't go to the station." Ruth Ann's eyes met his in the rearview mirror. She must have seen something in his face because she suddenly sat up straighter. "I'm sorry, Sheriff, but we really need to get home." She started the car. "If you want to talk, you can come by our house later." Sheriff Greeley's friendly mask slipped. "Now listen here." But Ruth Ann was already pulling away, leaving the sheriff standing on the roadside. Boone watched through the back window as Greeley stormed back to his cruiser. "He's going to follow us," Boone said. "I know." Ruth Ann took a sharp turn onto a side street. "But we're not going home yet." They wound through back roads and residential streets, Ruth Ann checking the mirrors constantly. Finally, after several quick turns, the sheriff's cruiser was nowhere in sight. "He'll come to the house," Boone said, "and he works for Hathaway, just like those men in the video." "I know, honey." Ruth Ann pulled into an empty church parking lot. "Dr. Pike called while you were getting the puppy settled. She told me everything." She turned to face him. "This is serious, isn't it? More serious than just finding a lost puppy?" Boone nodded, remembering the struggling figure being dragged away in the video. "Someone tried to stop Mr. Hathaway from doing something bad, and now they're in trouble." He looked down at the puppy, sleeping peacefully in his lap. This little guy was supposed to get help, but he got stuck in the storm drain instead. And now that help won't come for hours. Ruth Ann closed her eyes. "Oh, Boone, what are we going to do?" The puppy stirred, letting out a tiny whimper. Boone stroked its head, thinking hard. The sheriff was watching their house. State investigators wouldn't arrive for hours. Dr. Pike was probably being watched too. "We can't wait," he said finally. "That person in the video, they need help now. And everyone who's supposed to help them either works for Hathaway or can't get here in time." "Boone Carter," Ruth Ann said sharply. "Don't you dare start thinking what I think you're thinking." "But Mom—" "No, this is not your responsibility. You're 11 years old." "I'm the one who found the puppy," Boone insisted. "I'm the one who saw the video. And now I know someone needs help, but all the grown-ups who could do something are either bad guys or too far away." His voice cracked on the last words. The puppy stirred again, looking up at him with trusting eyes, just like it had trusted him to pull it from the culvert. Ruth Ann reached back and took his hand. "I understand how you feel, but this is dangerous. These are dangerous people." "I know." Boone squeezed her hand. "But someone's in trouble. Real trouble. And we're the only ones who know and can do something about it right now. They sat in silence for a long moment, the church bells chiming in the distance. Finally, Ruth Ann spoke, her voice thick with worry. "You're just like your father," she whispered. "He could never walk away when someone needed help either." Boone felt tears prick his eyes. They rarely talked about his dad. "What are we going to do?" he asked. Ruth Ann straightened in her seat. "First, we need somewhere safe to think. Somewhere they won't look for us." She started the car. "And I might know just the place." Ruth Ann's safe place turned out to be an abandoned feed store on the outskirts of town. The building's faded red paint peeled in strips, and weeds pushed through cracks in the concrete. But it was private, and the old office still had electricity. "Used to work here summers during high school," Ruth Ann explained, jimmying open a rusty side door. "Owner gave me a key when he retired. Never got around to turning it back in." Inside, Boone settled the puppy on an old desk, while Dr. Pike's voice crackled through his phone's speaker. She'd called as soon as they'd texted their location. "The files on the memory stick are worse than we thought," Dr. Pike said. "There's evidence of chemical dumping in the watershed. Dead birds, contaminated feed, falsified inspection reports. But that's not all." She paused, and Boone could hear papers shuffling. "The whistleblower is Marcus Chen. He was Hathaway's environmental compliance officer. He'd been collecting evidence for months, documenting everything." "But something made him act today," Ruth Ann said, brushing dust off an ancient filing cabinet. "Yes." Dr. Pike's voice grew tight. According to his notes, he discovered that Hathaway had been running unauthorized experiments, testing dangerous growth hormones on the chickens. When workers got sick from handling the treated birds, Hathaway buried the medical reports and threatened their families if they talked. Boone looked at the puppy, now curled up on a ratty blanket they'd found. "That's why Mr. Chen used the puppy, isn't it? He knew Hathaway's men would be looking for someone running with files or a computer." "Exactly," Dr. Pike confirmed. He had a security guard's puppy that he'd been treating for an injured paw. The guard had mentioned the dog liked to wander near the storm drains. Marcus saw an opportunity. Boone stroked the puppy's soft fur. He hoped someone kind would find him, someone who'd help. But he couldn't know that Hathaway would catch him before he could get away, Ruth Ann added softly. More papers rustled through the phone. "The last file is a video Marcus recorded this morning. He knew they were onto him. Listen." A new voice filled the dusty office, hurried and frightened. "If you're watching this, they probably have me already. The proof is all here. The dumping, the contamination, the cover-ups. But the worst is in the basement of Building 7. That's where they're running the illegal trials. There are people down there. Sick workers they're keeping quiet. They need help." Boone's stomach churned. He thought of the figure being dragged away in the security footage. Mr. Chen had tried to help those people, and now he was in trouble too. "The police won't help?" Ruth Ann asked, but her tone said she already knew the answer. "Sheriff Greeley's been on Hathaway's payroll for years," Dr. Pike replied. "That's in the files too, along with half the county health board and 3 state inspectors." Boone walked to the grimy window, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. "How long will they keep Mr. Chen alive?" The silence that followed was answer enough. "The state investigators," Ruth Ann began. "Won't get here in time," Dr. Pike finished. "And Hathaway has too many friends in local law enforcement. As soon as word reaches him that outside agencies are coming, he'll destroy the evidence and—" She didn't finish the sentence. The puppy whimpered in its sleep, paws twitching. Boone thought about Mr. Chen, choosing this tiny creature as his messenger, trusting that someone would find it, someone who'd care enough to help. "Building 7, Boone said quietly. "That's the old processing plant, isn't it? The one they shut down last year?" "Boone," Ruthann warned. "Don't." But Dr. Pike was already answering. "Yes, it's at the far end of the compound, past the main factory. According to these files, they've been using it for months, running secret operations after hours." Boone turned from the window. The magnitude of it all pressed down on him. The sick workers, the contaminated water, the corruption reaching into every part of town. And Mr. Chen, who'd tried to stop it, now trapped somewhere with Hathaway's men. "He risked everything," Boone said, "to help people, to stop Hathaway from hurting anyone else." He looked at his mother, seeing the worry in her eyes, but also something else. Understanding. "We can't just wait for help that might come too late." The puppy stirred, lifting its head and letting out a small, determined bark. Like it knew they were talking about its friend, the man who'd trusted it with such an important mission. Dr. Pike spoke again, her voice heavy with concern and resignation. "The files show the layout of Building 7. The basement access is through a maintenance tunnel. If someone were to try—" She paused. "If someone small enough could get in unseen—" "No," Ruthann said, but there was less conviction now. She'd seen the same things they had, understood the same terrible truth. Without immediate action, people would die, evidence would vanish, and Hathaway would continue hurting their community. Boone picked up the puppy, holding it close. Mr. Chen trusted that whoever found his puppy would be someone who'd do the right thing. He met his mother's gaze. He was counting on it. The weight of the moment settled over the old feed store office. Outside, storm clouds were gathering again, but these couldn't be waited out like the morning's thunder. These were the kind of storms that changed lives, that tested what people were made of. The puppy licked Boone's chin, a gesture of complete trust. Just like Mr. Chen had trusted that kindness would find a way, that good people would stand up when it mattered most. Dr. Pike was still on the line, waiting. Ruthann stood by the filing cabinet, torn between protecting her son and knowing what had to be done. And Boone, holding the tiny creature that had started it all, felt the full weight of his choice, and knew exactly what he had to do. Boone knew exactly who to call. He'd seen Marisol Ortega fixing the library's computers last summer when they broke down. She'd done it for free, just because she could. That was the kind of person they needed right now. "You found what in a puppy's collar?" Marisol's voice crackled through Dr. Pike's office phone. The veterinarian had put it on speaker, letting them all hear. "I know it sounds crazy," Boone said, petting the sleeping puppy in his lap. "But we've got proof, real proof, and there's someone who needs our help." There was a pause on the line. "The whistleblower from Hathaway's plant? It's all over town that someone went missing this morning. My dad works security there, not for Hathaway directly, for the contractor company. He's been worried something bad was happening." Dr. Pike leaned forward. "Then you understand why we need to move quickly. Your father might be able to—" "No," Marisol cut in. "Dad can't help. Hathaway's people watch the security contractors extra close, but I can help. I know their systems. I did a work study there last semester. Give me 20 minutes to grab my laptop. Where should I meet you?" Ruthann spoke up. "The old feed store. It's quiet here and we can see if anyone's watching." While they waited, Dr. Pike spread out blueprints of Building 7 that she'd found in the files. The basement level was a maze of corridors and storage rooms. "The maintenance tunnel entrance is here," she pointed, "behind the loading dock. But there'll be cameras." "Maybe not," Boone said. "Remember that big storm this morning? Lightning hit the power station. Half the security systems were down for hours. That's probably why Mr. Chen chose today." The bell above the feed store door jingled. Marisol walked in, carrying a battered laptop case and wearing all black. Her dark hair was pushed back with a bandana, and her eyes were sharp with purpose. Okay, show me what we're dealing with. They gathered around Dr. Pike's laptop, watching the footage again. Marisol's fingers flew across her own keyboard, pulling up diagrams and schedules. The backup generators would have kicked in for essential systems, she explained. But the secondary cameras, the ones covering the maintenance areas, those run on a separate grid. They might still be down. How can we know for sure? Ruth Ann asked. Because I can see their network traffic. Marisol turned her screen around. Look, main security is running, but these sectors? She pointed to blinking red dots. Still dark. We've got a window, but it won't last long. They'll have repair crews out soon. Dr. Pike nodded. I've contacted a state investigator I trust. She's assembling a team, but they're 4 hours away at best. We need to find Mr. Chen before then. And keep him safe until help arrives, Boone added. The puppy stirred in his lap, yawning. What about the sick workers? The ones in the basement? Marisol pulled up another screen. There's a medical bay listed here, but it's marked as storage. Thing is, it's using way more power than storage should need. And look, supply deliveries every other day, marked as cleaning materials, but going through medical procurement. They all stared at the evidence mounting on the screens. Lives in danger, corruption reaching deep into their town, and time running out. I can guide you through the blind spots, Marisol said, looking at Boone. If you're sure about this. I am. Boone met his mother's worried gaze. We can't wait. Dr. Pike started gathering supplies, a basic first aid kit, some water bottles, a small flashlight. I'll coordinate with my contact at the state level. Once you find Mr. Chen, you'll need somewhere safe to take him. The old Miller barn, Ruth Ann suggested. It's been empty since they foreclosed, but the storm cellar's solid. I used to play there as a kid. She turned to Boone. I don't like this, but I understand why it has to be done. Just be careful. Both of you. Marisol was already setting up a secure channel on her phone. We'll use this to communicate. Short range but encrypted. Hathaway's people won't be able to intercept it. The puppy woke up fully now, as if sensing the energy in the room. It stood on Boone's lap, tail wagging with determination. What about this little guy? Boone asked. Leave him with me, Dr. Pike said. He's done his part. Now it's up to us to finish what Mr. Chen started. They spent the next 30 minutes studying the layouts, memorizing routes, and planning contingencies. Marisol marked the blind spots in the security system, showing Boone exactly where to move and when. Dr. Pike provided details about what to do if they found injured workers. Ruth Ann, despite her fears, contributed her knowledge of the old building from when she'd worked there years ago. Remember, Marisol said, double-checking her equipment. We're not trying to be heroes. We just need to find Mr. Chen and the workers, keep them safe until real help arrives, and preserve the evidence. Boone nodded, feeling the weight of the task ahead. But he also felt something else, the strength that comes from not being alone. He had Marisol's tech skills, Dr. Pike's guidance, his mother's support, and most importantly, the knowledge that they were doing what was right. The puppy gave a small, encouraging bark as they prepared to leave. In its tiny, brave heart, it had carried hope through a storm to find help. Now it was there, turned to prove that trust wasn't misplaced. Through the clinic's windows, a dark shape hummed across the evening sky. Boone pressed himself against the wall, heart pounding as the drone swept past. That's the third one in 20 minutes, Marisol whispered, peering through a gap in the blinds. They're getting closer. Dr. Pike rushed in from her lab, clutching papers. Her face was pale. The blood work came back. You all need to see this. She spread the results across her desk, pointing to highlighted sections. The puppy's DNA shows signs of artificial modification. These markers here, they're not natural." Boone looked at the tiny dog, now sleeping peacefully in its carrier. "What do you mean?" "They've engineered these animals specifically to carry evidence," Dr. Pike explained, her voice shaking. "The memory stick wasn't a one-time thing. This puppy, and probably others, were created to be living carriers. Their genetic makeup helps them survive extreme conditions. They're practically invisible to security systems." Ruth Ann covered her mouth. "That's horrible." "There's more," Dr. Pike continued. "The blood work shows traces of various compounds. This puppy has been exposed to the same chemicals that were making the workers sick. It's like a walking record of everything Hathaway's been doing." Outside, a guard dog barked. Everyone froze. Through the window, they could see men with flashlights moving methodically through the parking lot. "They're sweeping the whole block," Marisol said, checking her laptop. "I'm picking up at least 6 different drone signatures. And those dogs?" She pulled up a thermal imaging feed. "They're not normal guard dogs. Their heat signatures are all wrong." Boone watched as one of Hathaway's men attached something to a telephone pole. "What's that?" "Mobile surveillance camera," Marisol answered. "They're creating a net. Once it's complete, nothing will move in this area without them knowing." Dr. Pike gathered the lab results. "This changes everything. We're not just dealing with corporate corruption anymore. This is systematic. The genetic manipulation, the chemical testing, using animals as disposable evidence carriers. It's all connected." The puppy woke up, whimpering softly. Boone reached into the carrier to comfort it, and as he touched its soft fur, something crystallized in his mind. This wasn't just about saving Mr. Chen anymore. Every piece of evidence, every modified animal, every sick worker, they were all part of something much bigger and much worse. "We can't match their technology," Boone said slowly, "but maybe we don't have to." He turned to Marisol. "You said the puppy is invisible to security systems. What if we use that?" Marisol's eyes widened. "Of course! Their whole security network is designed to detect normal threats. People, vehicles, standard heat signatures. But these modified animals..." She quickly typed something. "Look at this. The puppy barely registers on their scanners." "We need to rethink everything," Dr. Pike agreed. "Our original plan won't work, not with all this security. But if we understand how they operate, what they expect..." A car drove slowly past the clinic, its headlights sweeping across the windows. Everyone ducked down until it passed. "The drones have regular patterns," Marisol observed, studying her screen. "And the guards are methodical, too methodical. They're looking for obvious threats. Adults, teenagers, cars." "But not kids," Boone said. "Not small animals. Not things they think are harmless." Ruth Ann shook her head. "Boone, no, it's too dangerous." "Mom, look." He pointed to the puppy. "They created these animals to carry their secrets, thinking no one would ever notice them. They're doing horrible things because they don't think anyone will look closely enough to see. But we did notice. We did look closer." Dr. Pike studied the lab results again. "The genetic modifications, they're extensive. These animals were designed to find their way to safety, to protect what they're carrying. Almost like they have a built-in compass for finding help." "That's why it came to me," Boone realized. "During the storm, it wasn't just random." Another drone buzzed nearby. Through the windows, they could see more guards arriving, more cameras being mounted. Hathaway's security net was tightening. "If we try to move like we planned," Marisol said, "we'll be caught in minutes. But if we think like they think, if we use what they consider beneath their notice..." The puppy stood in its carrier, tail wagging, looking at them with bright, intelligent eyes. In its small body was evidence of crimes greater than they'd imagined. Its very existence proved how far Hathaway would go to maintain control. "We have to stop them," Boone said firmly. Not just save Mr. Chen, all of it. The animals, the workers, everything. Dr. Pike nodded slowly. I'll call my contact again. This is bigger than local law enforcement now. We're talking about illegal genetic experimentation, environmental crimes, systematic abuse. But we still have to survive until help arrives, Ruth Ann reminded them. They gathered around Marisol's laptop, watching the security net grow tighter. Drones patrolled in precise patterns. Guards with modified dogs swept every street. Cameras tracked every movement. But they hadn't caught the puppy during the storm. They hadn't noticed Boone in the rain. Their powerful security system, for all its technology, still had blind spots. They were looking for threats that matched their expectations, not the ones that came in unexpected packages. The puppy pressed its nose against the carrier door, whining softly. In its eyes, Boone saw something he recognized: determination. This tiny animal had carried its burden through thunder and rain, past security and danger, to find someone who would help. It hadn't given up. Neither would they. Boone spread out a wrinkled map of the storm drains on Dr. Pike's examination table. His finger traced the maze of culverts that ran beneath the streets, stopping at a point near Hathaway's processing plant. Here, he said. This drainage pipe comes up right behind their maintenance shed. I explored it last summer during the drought. Marisol leaned over the map, her dark hair falling forward. The security cameras don't cover that area well. There's a blind spot where the fence meets the old loading dock. Dr. Pike frowned, adjusting her glasses. It's risky. Those tunnels could flood if it rains again. That's why it'll work, Boone insisted. They won't expect anyone to use them, especially not now. He pulled out his phone, showing them weather radar images. Plus, the storm's moving east. We have maybe 3 hours before the next band hits. The puppy watched them from its carrier, ears perked up. Its tiny presence reminded them of what was at stake. Marisol typed rapidly on her laptop. I can hack their security system, but only temporarily. They'll notice if cameras stay down too long. She showed them the plant's security feed. But look, every hour they do a systematic check of all cameras. That creates a 2-minute window when the system resets. 2 minutes isn't much time, Dr. Pike said. It's enough, Boone replied, especially if they're distracted. He turned to Dr. Pike. Could you drive your van past the main gate? Make it look like you're responding to an emergency? Dr. Pike nodded slowly. I have legitimate reasons to be in the area. There's a farm next door that's one of my clients. Perfect. Marisol pulled up another screen. When Dr. Pike creates the distraction, I'll trigger their perimeter alerts on the opposite side of the facility. That should draw their security teams away from the maintenance area. Boone felt his heart racing, but kept his voice steady. While they're dealing with that, I can use the culvert to reach the maintenance shed. The whistleblower's probably in one of the storage rooms nearby. That's where the video showed them taking him. Absolutely not, Dr. Pike protested. You can't go in alone. It's too dangerous. I won't be alone, Boone said, looking at the puppy. Remember what you said about its genetic modifications? How it can find its way to safety? Maybe it can help me find Mr. Chen, too. Marisol studied her security feeds. The guards change shifts at 11. That's our best window. Security will be lighter, and the shift change adds confusion we can use. They spent the next hour preparing. Marisol programmed her hack, testing it against similar systems. Dr. Pike gathered medical supplies in her van, including a small kit Boone could carry. They found Boone a dark raincoat and boots that wouldn't reflect light. The maintenance shed has a back door with an electronic keypad, Marisol explained, showing Boone pictures on her screen. When I trigger the security reset, it'll default to the emergency code. 4721. Remember that. 4721, Boone repeated, memorizing it. Dr. Pike handed him a small radio. "Channel 3. Keep it on silent. Vibrate only. If anything goes wrong, if you feel in danger at all, you signal us immediately." Boone nodded, tucking the radio into his pocket. He felt scared, but also strangely calm. Everything that had happened, finding the puppy, discovering the truth about Hathaway, gathering these allies, it all led to this moment. They drove separately to avoid attention. Dr. Pike parked her van near the farm, ready to create their distraction. Marisol set up in a coffee shop with Wi-Fi, where she could monitor security feeds. Boone's mom dropped him off 2 blocks from the storm drain entrance, hugging him tightly before letting him go. The night was dark, clouds hiding the moon. Boone carried the puppy in his jacket, feeling its warm weight against his chest. He reached the drain entrance and paused, listening carefully before removing the loose grating he'd discovered months ago. "Ready?" he whispered to the puppy. It licked his chin in response. The culvert was narrow but big enough to crouch walk through. Boone switched on his small flashlight, keeping it pointed down. Water trickled past his boots. The air smelled of wet concrete and mud. His radio vibrated. Marisol's voice came through, barely a whisper. "Security shift change starting. Dr. Pike moving into position." Boone kept moving, counting his steps. The puppy stayed quiet, as if understanding the need for silence. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, he reached the outlet near the maintenance shed. Another vibration. "Distraction starting in 30 seconds. Get ready." Through the drain's opening, Boone saw floodlights illuminating the plant's fence. A security guard passed by, radio crackling. Boone held his breath until the footsteps faded. Suddenly, he heard Dr. Pike's van roar up to the main gate, horn blaring. Her voice carried clearly. "Emergency call. I need to check on the Henderson's prize bull." Almost simultaneously, alarms began blaring on the far side of the facility. Boone watched as guards ran toward the commotion. Floodlights swiveled away from his position. His radio vibrated a 3rd time. "Camera reset in 5, 4, 3. Boone took a deep breath, tightening his grip on the puppy. Everything they'd discovered, everyone counting on them. It all came down to the next few minutes. 2, 1, now! He burst from the drain, sprinting toward the maintenance shed's back door. The keypad glowed in the darkness. 4721. The lock clicked open. Boone slipped inside, heart pounding. The first part of their plan had worked. Now came the hard part. Finding the whistleblower and getting him out alive. The puppy squirmed in his jacket, nose twitching. Boone set it down carefully. "Okay," he whispered. "Help me find him." Outside, alarms still blared. Their diversion was working, but time was running out. Boone took another, deep breath and followed the puppy into the shadows of the maintenance shed, knowing that every step took them closer to either rescue or disaster. Inside the maintenance shed, the puppy's nose led them through a maze of pipes and machinery. Boone's flashlight beam caught cobwebs and dust, but the puppy moved with purpose, heading deeper into the building's core. They passed through a heavy door into what looked like a processing area, where the air smelled sharp and chemical. The puppy stopped suddenly, ears perked. A muffled sound came from above, someone crying out. "Up there," Boone whispered, spotting a metal staircase leading to a catwalk system. His heart pounded as they climbed, trying to keep their footsteps quiet on the metal grating. The catwalk stretched over enormous vats filled with bubbling liquid. Steam rose from their surfaces, making the air hot and thick. Boone's glasses fogged up, and he had to keep wiping them with his sleeve. Following the puppy's lead, they reached a small room suspended above the vats. Through its dirty window, Boone saw a man tied to a chair, Mr. Chen, the whistleblower. 2 guards stood nearby, looking bored. Just then, Boone's radio vibrated. Marisol's voice came through. "Guards heading to the east gate. Now's your chance." Boone waited until the guards checked their phones, distracted by whatever alert Marisol had sent. Then he crept forward, testing each step to avoid making the catwalk creak. The puppy stayed close to his ankles. The door wasn't locked. They probably thought no one could get up here anyway. Boone eased it open just enough to squeeze through. Mr. Chen's eyes widened when he saw him, but he stayed quiet. "I'm here to help," Boone whispered, working on the ropes binding Chen's hands. "Dr. Pike sent me. We have evidence of what Hathaway's doing." "The memory stick?" Chen whispered back. "You found it?" "Yes, the puppy brought it to us." The last rope came loose. "Can you walk?" Chen nodded, rubbing his wrists. "Carefully. They drugged me earlier." They made it to the door, but just as Boone reached for the handle, voices echoed from below. Heavy footsteps on metal stairs. "Hide!" Chen pushed Boone behind some storage drums. The puppy crawled in after him. The door burst open. Carver Hathaway himself strode in, tall and imposing in his expensive suit. He held a handgun casually, like it was just another business accessory. 2 security guards flanked him. "Going somewhere, Mr. Chen?" Hathaway's voice was smooth as oil. "After all the trouble I went to, arranging this private meeting." "They know everything," Chen said. "The evidence is already with the authorities." "Is it?" Hathaway smiled. "Because my sources tell me a child found your little messenger, and children are so easily managed." Boone's breath caught. From his hiding spot, he could see down through the grating to the vats below. The chemicals bubbled and steamed, looking deadly. "Speaking of which," Hathaway nodded to his guards. "Find the boy. He has to be close." The guards began searching the room. Boone pressed himself flatter against the wall, but the puppy suddenly squirmed in his arms. Before he could stop it, it squeezed free and darted out. "Well, well," Hathaway said. "Look what we have here." One of the guards snatched up the puppy, which yelped in pain. "Don't hurt it!" Boone burst from his hiding place without thinking. "Ah, there you are." Hathaway turned the gun toward him. "The brave little hero. Did you really think you could stop me? A child against my entire operation?" The guard holding Chen twisted his arm sharply. Chen gasped in pain. The other guard dangled the puppy over the catwalk railing, above the vats. "Now then," Hathaway said. "The memory stick. Where is it?" I don't have it," Boone stammered. He was backed against the railing, the metal cold against his spine. "No? Then who does? That meddling vet? The police?" Hathaway stepped closer. "Tell me, or we'll see how well your little friend here can swim in industrial chemicals." The puppy whimpered. Boone felt tears in his eyes, but he kept his voice steady. "You're a monster." "I'm a businessman," Hathaway corrected. "One who's built everything from nothing, who won't let anyone, especially not a child, destroy what's mine." He reached for Boone's jacket. "Last chance. Where's my property?" Boone tried to dodge, but there was nowhere to go. His foot slipped on the metal grating. He grabbed the railing to steady himself, but it was slick with condensation. For one horrible moment, he felt himself tipping backward, the vats yawning below him like hungry mouths. Hathaway caught his collar, but not to save him. The man's grip was cruel, threatening. "I won't ask again." Boone looked at Chen's defeated expression, at the puppy struggling in the guard's grip. Everything they'd worked for seemed to be falling apart. He was just a kid, and Hathaway was right. How could he possibly have thought he could stop someone so powerful? The chemical fumes made his head spin. Far below, the vats bubbled and steamed, promising a horrible fate if he fell. Boone had never felt more scared or alone in his life. "Time's up," Hathaway said softly, and began to push. Boone's fingers gripped the railing as his mind raced. Through the fog of fear, he noticed a faint red light blinking in the shadows. The security camera. Marisol had hacked into them earlier. Was she watching? As if answering his thought, a loud screech of feedback erupted from the plant's PA system. Hathaway's grip loosened slightly as he turned towards the noise. "Ladies and gentlemen of Channel 7 News," Marisol's voice boomed through the speakers. "What you're watching is a live feed from inside Hathaway Poultry Processing. The man with the gun is Carver Hathaway himself." Hathaway's face drained of color. "What?" "Dr. Pike sends her regards," Marisol continued. "She thought the evening news might be interested in your special business practices. They're quite excited about the footage from that memory stick." On the catwalk, the guard holding the puppy looked uncertainly at his boss. "Sir, what should we—" "Shut it down," Hathaway shouted. "Kill the cameras, kill the stream, kill everything." "Can't do that," Marisol's voice was smugly cheerful. "I've locked you out of your own systems. Oh, and those chemicals you're dangling people over? The EPA is very interested in those. Smile for the cameras, Mr. Hathaway. You're trending on social media." Through the high windows, Boone could see the pulse of red and blue lights. Police sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. "It's over," Chen said quietly. "Let the boy go." Hathaway's grip tightened on his gun. "Nothing's over. I still have hostages. I can still—" "Boss!" One of the guards pointed outside. A news helicopter was circling the building, its spotlight cutting through the darkness. More police cars were pulling up to the gates. "Dr. Pike did it," Boone breathed. "She got everyone here." The guard holding the puppy slowly set it down. It scampered straight to Boone, trembling but alive. The other guard released Chen, backing away with his hands raised. "We're not going down for this," the first guard said. "Sorry, Mr. Hathaway, but I got kids of my own." Hathaway stood alone now, gun shaking in his hand. His perfectly pressed suit seemed to deflate as his empire crumbled around him. "You!" he snarled at Boone. "This is your fault. A nobody, a child. How dare you ruin everything I built?" "You ruined it yourself," Boone said, standing straighter. The puppy pressed against his leg, giving him courage. "By hurting people, by thinking you could get away with anything." Police boots thundered on the stairs. Voices shouted commands to surrender. The helicopter spotlight found them through the windows, turning night to day. "Boone!" Dr. Pike's voice came through the PA. "Hold on, we're coming. State police are almost there." Hathaway looked at his gun, then at Boone, something desperate and dangerous in his eyes. But before he could act, Chen tackled him from behind. The gun skittered across the catwalk as they struggled. "Run!" Chen shouted to Boone. "Get out while you can!" But Boone didn't run. Instead, he darted forward and kicked the gun through the grating. It plunged into one of the vats below with a distant splash. The puppy barked, as if cheering him on. The police burst through the door, weapons drawn. "Freeze! Hands where we can see them!" Hathaway slowly raised his hands, his face twisted with fury and defeat. As the officers cuffed him, Boone saw Marisol peek around the doorframe, giving him a thumbs up. Behind her, Dr. Pike was talking rapidly to a group of reporters and officials. "You did good, kid," Chen said, putting a hand on Boone's shoulder. "That was some smart thinking with the camera feeds." "It was everyone together," Boone said. "Marisol's hacking, Dr. Pike's planning, your bravery with the memory stick." He picked up the puppy, which licked his face. "And this little guy, bringing us all together." Through the windows, he could see more news vans arriving. The story would be everywhere by morning. Hathaway's crimes exposed, his power broken by an unlikely team led by a boy who just wanted to save a puppy. "Speaking of planning," Marisol called from the doorway, "we should figure out our next steps. The police want statements, and Dr. Pike says there's going to be a formal investigation." Boone nodded, feeling tired but proud. "First, this puppy needs food and a warm bed. Then we'll deal with everything else." "I think that can be arranged," Dr. Pike said, joining them. She looked at the puppy with professional concern. "Let's get everyone checked out, statements given, and then we can work on making sure justice is properly served." As they walked down the stairs together, Boone heard Hathaway shouting about lawyers and consequences, but the man's threats seemed hollow now, his power stripped away by truth and courage. "You know," Marisol said, "we make a pretty good team. Maybe we should stick together, help more people." "Let's get through this first," Dr. Pike advised. "But I agree. You all showed remarkable bravery and ingenuity." Boone hugged the puppy closer, thinking about everything they'd accomplished. They had faced down a powerful man who thought he was untouchable, exposed his crimes, and saved lives. More importantly, they'd proven that even kids could stand up for what was right. "First things first," he said. "This puppy needs a name." The tiny dog wagged its tail, safe at last in the arms of the boy who had first rescued it from a storm drain, the simple act of kindness that had started everything. Boone crouched behind a stack of empty barrels, his heart pounding. The puppy's whimpers echoed from somewhere above, mixing with the mechanical hum of the processing plant. Through gaps in the barrels, he could see two of Hathaway's guards pacing the catwalk, where they held Chen, the whistleblower. "This is crazy!" Marisol's voice crackled through the walkie-talkie. "Are you sure about this?" Boone pressed the talk button. "No choice. Dr. Pike's news crew is 15 minutes out. We have to move now." He checked his watch, 9:45 p.m. The night shift would change in exactly 15 minutes. That's when they'd make their move. The plant foreman, Marcus Thompson, appeared on the upper level. Boone held his breath. Thompson was Hathaway's right-hand man, known for his stern demeanor and unwavering loyalty. But something was different tonight. Thompson kept looking at Chen, then at his phone, his face troubled. Boone remembered how Thompson had hesitated earlier when Hathaway ordered Chen's capture. Maybe, just maybe. "Starting the diversion," Marisol whispered through the radio. Seconds later, alarms blared from the opposite end of the plant. Guards rushed toward the sound, leaving only one man, watching Chen. Boone slipped from behind the barrels, staying in the shadows. The puppy's cries grew louder, pulling at his heart. He had to time this perfectly. Thompson walked over to the remaining guard, speaking in low tones. Boone couldn't hear the words, but he saw Thompson gesture toward his phone. The guard leaned in to look. That's when Thompson moved with surprising speed. He grabbed the guard's arm, twisting it behind his back. "Go," he shouted to Chen. "I saw the video footage. Hathaway's gone too far this time." Boone sprinted up the metal stairs, his footsteps lost in the chaos of alarms and shouts. Chen broke free, but stumbled, weak from his ordeal. "This way." Boone grabbed Chen's arm. "Dr. Pike's van is waiting." "The puppy," Chen gasped. "The data. We can't leave." "I know where they are keeping it." Boone led them down a side corridor, following the sounds of barking. They found the puppy in a small office, locked in a carrier. Thompson appeared behind them, slightly out of breath. "More guards are coming. I've worked here 20 years, never thought I'd see." He shook his head. "What Hathaway's doing, it's wrong. The chemical dumping, the threats, all of it." Boone grabbed the carrier. "Help us get out, Mr. Thompson. Your testimony could—" "Already sent everything to the EPA," Thompson cut in. "Been gathering evidence since I saw what they did to Chen. Sometimes it takes a kid's courage to make a grown man do the right thing." Shouts echoed from the stairwell. Hathaway's voice rose above the others, sharp with rage. "Find them, now!" They ran, Thompson leading them through back passages he knew from years of working there. The puppy stayed quiet in its carrier, as if sensing the need for silence. "Marisol," Boone whispered into his radio. "Status?" "Police are 5 minutes out. Dr. Pike's got 3 news vans following her, but Hathaway's men are blocking the main exit." Thompson pointed to a maintenance door. "Loading dock. It's our best shot." They burst through the door onto the loading dock. Flashlight beams swept the area. Guards shouted coordinates into radios. "There!" someone yelled. A shot rang out, pinging off metal near Boone's head. "Stop!" Hathaway's command boomed through the night. "You're destroying everything I built!" More shots. Thompson pushed Boone and Chen behind a forklift. The puppy whimpered. "It's over, Carver," Thompson shouted back. "The evidence is already out. Video footage, chemical reports, everything." Boone peeked around the forklift. Hathaway stood on a higher platform, gun raised, his expensive suit dusty and torn. In the distance, police sirens wailed. "I won't let some kid and a traitor ruin me," Hathaway snarled, aiming at Boone. But he never got the chance to fire. Red and blue lights flooded the loading dock. Police cars screeched to a halt, officers pouring out with weapons drawn. Behind them, news vans appeared, cameras already rolling. "Carver Hathaway," Dr. Pike's voice boomed through a megaphone. "The facility is surrounded. We have the evidence. It's finished." Hathaway's gun hand trembled. For a moment, Boone thought he might shoot anyway. Then Thompson stepped into the open, hands raised. "Put it down, Carver," Thompson said quietly. "You taught me loyalty was everything. But loyalty to what? Profit? Power? Or doing what's right?" The gun lowered slowly. Hathaway seemed to shrink, his shoulders sagging as officers approached with handcuffs ready. Boone opened the carrier. The puppy leaped into his arms, tail wagging frantically. Chen gripped his shoulder, eyes wet with grateful tears. "How did you know?" Chen asked. "About Thompson." "I didn't," Boone admitted. "But I saw his face when they caught you. Sometimes people just need a chance to do the right thing." Dr. Pike ran to them, checking everyone for injuries. Marisol appeared with blankets and water bottles. As reporters gathered, eager for the story, Boone held the puppy close and watched Hathaway being led away. "You okay?" Marisol asked softly. Boone nodded, scratching behind the puppy's ears. "Yeah, we all are." Police lights painted the night in flashing colors. Somewhere in the chaos, justice was being served. But right here, right now, Boone simply felt grateful for the tiny dog that had started it all, and the courage it had helped him find. Red and blue lights painted the loading dock as police cars streamed into the facility grounds. Officers poured out with weapons drawn, their movements precise and coordinated. Behind them, news vans jostled for position, camera crews already broadcasting live. "This is Sarah Chen for Channel 7 News," a reporter's voice cut through the chaos. "We're live at Hathaway Poultry, where multiple arrests are underway following shocking evidence of environmental crimes and whistleblower intimidation." Boone watched from behind the forklift as state police officers approached Hathaway, their weapons trained steadily. The businessman's face had gone pale, his usual commanding presence crumbling under the weight of exposure. "Carver Hathaway," the lead officer announced. "You're under arrest for conspiracy, environmental violations, and attempted kidnapping. Put your hands where we can see them." Hathaway's gun clattered to the ground. As officers moved to cuff him, his eyes locked onto Boone's. There was something desperate in that look, something broken. "It was just a kid," Hathaway muttered. "Just a stupid kid in a mutt." More police cars arrived, and with them came FBI agents in dark windbreakers. They moved swiftly through the facility, securing evidence and detaining Hathaway's security team. The puppy trembled in Boone's arms, but its tail wagged steadily now. Sheriff Greeley appeared at the main entrance, trying to take charge. "Now hold on here. I have jurisdiction." Sheriff Wallace Greeley, an FBI agent, cut him off, producing a warrant. "We have evidence of your involvement in covering up Mr. Hathaway's illegal activities. You'll need to come with us." The color drained from Greeley's face as two officers moved to escort him. His badge was removed, and Boone heard him protest weakly about misunderstandings and proper channels. Dr. Pike approached with blankets, wrapping one around Chen's shoulders. "The EPA is already on their way," she said. "They're bringing environmental assessment teams." "The chemical dumping," Chen spoke up, his voice stronger now. "It's all documented, not just in the footage, but in company records. Thompson helped me gather everything." Thompson nodded grimly. 20 years watching it get worse. Should have spoken up sooner, but he looked at Boone. "Sometimes it takes seeing real courage to find your own." Marisol jogged over, her laptop tucked under her arm. "The footage is everywhere," she reported, grinning. "Social media, news sites, everything. Nobody can bury this now." More official vehicles arrived. EPA vans, state environmental teams, even federal marshals. The facility buzzed with activity as teams began collecting samples and securing documents. Through it all, Boone held the puppy, watching justice unfold with a mix of awe and relief. "Hey, kid," a gentle voice called. A female FBI agent approached, smiling. "We're going to need statements from everyone, but I wanted to say, what you did here, it was incredibly brave." Boone shrugged, suddenly shy. "I just helped a puppy." "You did a lot more than that," Chen said, placing a hand on Boone's shoulder. "You showed that one person's choice to do the right thing can change everything, even when it seems impossible." Dr. Pike was talking to the EPA officials, explaining about the puppy's role as an evidence carrier and the genetic manipulation. "The animal testing facility will need to be investigated too," she insisted. "There are serious ethical violations." "Already on it," an official assured her. "We're shutting down all of Hathaway's operations pending full investigation." Through the facility's gates, Boone could see more news vans arriving. Local residents were gathering too, drawn by the commotion and live broadcasts. Among them, he spotted his mother, her face a mix of worry and pride as she waited by the police barrier. Hathaway was being led to a police car, his expensive suit dirty and wrinkled. "This isn't over," he called out, but his voice lacked its usual authority. "I have lawyers, connections." "Save it for court," an officer advised, guiding him into the back seat. Thompson watched the car pull away, shaking his head. "Man built an empire on lies and fear. All it took was one brave kid and a little dog to bring it down." The puppy squirmed in Boone's arms, trying to lick his face. Despite everything, he couldn't help but laugh. This tiny creature, meant to be just another disposable tool in Hathaway's schemes, had instead become the key to exposing it all. Marisol's laptop showed news headlines already spreading. "Corporate, corruption exposed by local hero, and environmental crimes uncovered at Hathaway facilities." "They want interviews," Marisol told him. "Everyone wants to talk to the kid who cracked the case." Boone shook his head. "I don't need that. I just want—" He looked at the puppy, then at Chen, Dr. Pike, and all the others who had helped. "I just wanted to make things right." EPA teams were setting up mobile testing stations. Investigators cataloged evidence. Officers took statements. The massive machinery of justice, once stalled by corruption, was now moving at full speed. And it had all started with one small act of kindness in a storm drain. Chen approached, looking stronger after receiving medical attention. "The puppy," he said softly. "I never meant for it to be in danger. I needed to get the evidence to someone pure-hearted enough to do the right thing, no matter what." The puppy wagged its tail at Chen, and Boone smiled. "Looks like your plan worked." Above them, news helicopters circled, their spotlights illuminating the scene. Justice wasn't just an abstract concept anymore. It was happening right here, right now, in a flood of flashing lights and official actions. The corrupt empire Hathaway had built was being dismantled piece by piece, and truth was finally coming to light. 2 weeks after Hathaway's arrest, Boone trudged through damp grass toward the culvert where it all began. The morning sun cast long shadows across the ground, still wet from yesterday's rain. The puppy, now officially his and named Scout, poked its head out from his jacket, nose twitching at familiar scents. "This is where I found you, little guy," Boone said softly, kneeling by the concrete pipe. The water flowed clear now, one of the first changes after the EPA shut down Hathaway's illegal dumping operations. Fish had already returned to the stream, their silver bodies flashing in the morning light. Scout wiggled free and sniffed around the culvert's entrance, tail wagging. The tiny dog had grown stronger over the past weeks, though it would always be unusually small due to the genetic manipulation. Dr. Pike had promised to monitor Scout's health carefully, turning what Hathaway meant as a cruel experiment into a chance to learn how to help other animals. Boone sat on a dry patch of grass, watching Scout explore. So much had changed since that stormy afternoon. The town buzzed with activity as investigation teams worked through Hathaway's properties. His mother had received a whistleblower reward that meant they could finally fix their leaking roof and buy new clothes. But more importantly, people looked at them differently now, with respect instead of pity. "Hey, thought I'd find you here," Marisol's voice called. She appeared on the path, carrying 2 paper cups. "Hot chocolate. Mom made it special." Boone accepted the cup gratefully. "Thanks. Just wanted to see this place again." Marisol sat beside him, her usually energetic demeanor softened by understanding. "Making sure it was all real." "Yeah." Boone watched Scout chase a butterfly. "Sometimes it feels like a dream, you know? Like any minute I'll wake up and be just the kid nobody notices again." "That kid did something amazing," Marisol said firmly. "And people noticed. They'll remember." She was right. The town had changed. Thompson, the plant foreman, had been named interim manager of the facility, working with environmental teams to transform it into a model of ethical operation. Dr. Pike's clinic had received funding to establish a research center focused on treating animals affected by chemical exposure. Even the sheriff's department had new leadership, committed to serving the community rather than powerful interests. "Mom's different too," Boone said quietly. "Not just because of the money. She stands taller now, like she's proud. Really proud." "She should be," Marisol replied. "Her son's a hero." Boone blushed, still uncomfortable with the word. "I just did what felt right." "That's what makes it heroic," a new voice joined them. Dr. Pike approached, her white coat exchanged for casual weekend clothes. "Sorry to interrupt. I was dropping off supplies at the new shelter and saw you here." Scout yipped excitedly, running circles around the vet's legs. Dr. Pike laughed, scooping up the puppy. "And how's our little evidence carrier doing today?" "Getting stronger," Boone reported. "The special food you prescribed is helping." Dr. Pike sat with them, forming a small circle by the culvert. "You know, Boone, I've been thinking about offering you a job. Part-time, after school. We could use someone with your instincts for caring for animals." Boone's eyes widened. "Really? But I don't know anything about—" "You know the most important thing," Dr. Pike interrupted gently. "You know how to listen to your heart when it tells you something's wrong. Everything else can be taught." Scout settled in Boone's lap, a warm reminder of how this all started. The puppy's trust had been the first step, proving that sometimes the smallest creatures could inspire the biggest changes. Chen called yesterday, Marisol shared. He's testifying next week. Says he couldn't have done it without us. Without Boone, Dr. Pike corrected. He gave Chen and all of us the courage to stand up. Boone stroked Scout's ears, remembering the fear and doubt he'd felt that first day. I was scared, he admitted. Really scared. But something inside wouldn't let me walk away. That's conscience, Dr. Pike said. The voice that tells us what's right, even when it's hard. You listened to it when others wouldn't. The morning sun climbed higher, warming their little group by the culvert. Somewhere in town, investigators were still working through Hathaway's files. News crews were preparing stories about corporate accountability and environmental justice. But here, in this quiet spot where it all began, Boone felt the true weight of what had changed. His mother's voice carried from the path. Thought I'd find you all here. She approached with a basket. Anyone hungry? I brought breakfast. As they spread out the food, fresh muffins, fruit, thermoses of coffee and juice, Boone looked at the faces around him. His mother, standing tall and confident. Marisol, whose friendship had proved invaluable. Dr. Pike, who had believed in him from the start. And Scout, the tiny puppy whose rescue had sparked it all. The culvert burbled quietly, its water running clean and clear. Birds sang in the trees above, returned to a habitat slowly healing from years of abuse. And Boone, no longer the overlooked child, but someone who had proved that courage and compassion could change the world, felt truly at peace. You know what? He said, breaking a muffin to share with Scout. I think this spot needs a bench, somewhere people can sit and remember what happened here. His mother smiled warmly. I think that's a wonderful idea, honey. A reminder that doing the right thing matters. The morning light caught Scout's collar, a new one, properly sized and decorated with a small tag shaped like a star. The puppy had gone from being a carrier of hidden evidence to a symbol of truth revealed, from a victim of cruelty to a beloved pet. Just like Boone had transformed from an unsure boy to someone who knew his own strength,